Hi, everyone. We are going to head on over to Facebook and see if we can get some people engaged there as well. We're just preparing to live stream this bad boy. Today, I am coming at you literally live so that we can answer some frequently asked questions. If you've got frequently asked questions, I'm going to be taking those here in a moment. Go ahead and put them in the Q&A box, not in the chat box. That's important. The chat box is for you to say hi to each other, kind of give each other high fives, do our own version of community is immunity. That's the whole point here, right? Is let's stay connected. And I thought a great way to do that would be to answer some of your questions. Okay, so just a bit of information about that. There is a chat box, and that's where you guys are going to talk to each other if you want to. But Q&A works best. If you've got a question for me, you can put it in the Q&A box, and that's going to make it easier for me to flush through all of that. But I thought we would get started with some frequently asked questions. I see a lot on labels because that's what today is about, is reading a label, a supplement label. You see all kinds of different things like RDIs, RDAs, percentage of daily values, relative daily values. What does it all mean? Because all the numbers are different. Well, RDAs they are the recommended daily allowances. And that word allowances has had to change. First off, RDAs were set up in the 70s, 1973 to be exact, and they changed later in 1994 to be called the RDIs, recommended daily intakes. Now, why did they have to change that? Because allowances led people to believe that they were getting enough, right? This is all you're allowed. When in fact, RDAs in 1973 made no claim about optimal wellness. They made no claim about knowing your gender, your athletic status, if you were pregnant, right? If you were overweight, if you have a comorbidity like heart disease or type 2 diabetes, they made no claim for what an individual needed based on their unique factors, right? So RDAs, they're out, right? Recommended daily allowances, out. Now in 1994, especially with the advent of the DSHEA Act, which is the Dietary Supplement and Education Act of 1994, DSHEA mentioned the importance of using nutrients, in particular in the supplement industry, for structure and function. This meant that RDIs, recommended daily intakes, played some role in understanding that nutrients beyond dietary intake would allow the body or the individual to be in a better position to overcome concerns that they have, meaning that this could be a flexible number based on gender, based on age, based on health status, including extra weight or concerns with heart disease or concerns with blood sugar or endocrine disorders. Now, supplements do not make a claim about treating, curing, or mitigating a disease, right? That is not what you just heard me say. But what the RDIs allow for is recommended daily intakes because they are a component of something called percent of daily values. They allow this number to be flexible based on individuals. And that's an important notion or an important element of the supplement label. Why? Well, if we look at the frequently asked questions, people still don't know what percent daily value means. In particular, they say to themselves, sometimes you see the percentage being above 100. What does that mean? So let's just do some quick reveals on the percent daily values. If you see something that says 80% daily value, what that's telling you is that it is 80% of this supplement contains, or this multivitamin contains 80% of the minimum amount necessary, right? But then you'll see on the other side, or the flip side, something like 1,000, like biotin is like this. Biotin will show up at 300 mics, mcg. It will show up as 1,000% of daily value. And what that means is that there's flexibility in this number, that while recommended daily intakes may be less at 30 mics, that in fact, there is research to show that increased amounts show benefit in individuals, in particular, individuals that carry extra weight, have age-related health decline or cellular decline, but that the literature shows that there is value above 100%. That's why you'll see differences in those numbers, and that's how you answer the question, why is my B12 5,000 percent of the daily value? Because there is merit, there is benefit to taking higher amounts of B12, depending on your gut health, depending on your gender, depending on your activity level, and that the literature shows that there's value going above 100% daily values. And that's why you're going to see flexibility in that number. And that's what these daily values, or these intakes, allow us to work with, is within a number that works for everybody. Now, there is recommended daily values are often attributed as well, and I should bring this up, are also attributed to values where we don't, there isn't a set standard for how much you need. Fat and even cholesterol is a great example of this. There's not a set amount of what we consider a healthy amount of fat. Again, this is a very fluid number based on gender, based on comorbidities, based on age, and the like. And so that's the big question that comes up, that percent of daily value being 5,000. Well, we covered that. It means that there's merit or benefit, or the research supports taking more than just the minimum amount necessary, or meeting that 100% daily value. It is important to note that that daily value is appreciating that you should be getting nutrients from food as well. And they're recommending that you go above that 100% because there's value in doing that. Now, this brings up another question about toxicity. How much is too much? I read a study once. Did you read the whole thing? Be honest. Okay. The idea is that we see a lot in the headlines, right? A lot of things say, oh, supplements cause harm, or supplements build up in the body, right? Knowing your source is super important. Knowing whether or not it's a synthetic vitamin or it is a natural vitamin. And when I use the word natural, what I'm saying to you is that it is derived from food or a natural product, right? In the supplement industry, biosimilar is another way that they will say this, is that it will not be the actual carrot, right? But it will be beta carotene sourced from carrot. But because it was sourced from, and it's not just a ground up carrot, they will sometimes call that biosimilar. Another thing that happens is when they will call biosimilar with things like vitamin C. The world is out there thinking that all vitamin C is GMO, all vitamin C is synthetic, which always makes me giggle. Because while it is possible to have a genetically modified synthetic ingredient, right, that's not the commonplace. It's either genetically modified and it grew out of the ground with some help, right, of these proteins injected into it, or it's synthetic. So those two things often compete with each other, the idea of GMO and synthetic. But newer to the industry is synthetic collagen, and it's GMO. So what are you going to do? But the idea here with vitamin C is also considered biosimilar in that when it doesn't come from a citrus fruit, or it doesn't come from oranges or acerola or hibiscus or something that's naturally rich in vitamin C, but is actually extracted from something like corn, that they'll call that a biosimilar because it doesn't come from what would be considered a classic source of vitamin C. Now that's kind of a goofy example because I would say that corn is still considered a conventional source of vitamin C, but that is the example that is given, is that most people think of vitamin C in oranges. So they'll often talk about biosimilar vitamin C coming from sources other than citrus fruits. So there's always that. Now, this brings up an important point that I want you to look at when you're thinking about reading a label. Labels will tell you if their ingredients are synthetic because they'll use things like D in front of the word. So when you see D-tocopherol, right? Actually, that's a bad example. When you see D-phenylalanine, right, you know that that amino acid, which is a really important amino acid to be honest, is synthetic. But when you see L-phenylalanine, when you see an L in front of something, what you're learning is that that ingredient is natural, right? So L-glutamine, L-tyrosine, L-phenylalanine. This tells you that we're using, or that the label that you're looking at is using a natural ingredient. So we'll often let you know on the label if you're looking at a synthetic ingredient or a natural ingredient, which brings me to a really important point. People are still worried about toxicity. So what about vitamin A? I heard it builds up in the body and causes cancer. Well, let's talk about that, right? So vitamin A, or retinoic acid, is rarely found actually in supplements. Beta-carotene is. Beta-carotene is what is referred to as provitamin A. And provitamin A is two beta-carotenes. The two of them together become retinoic acid or vitamin A. And there is an enzyme in the body that prevents two beta-carotenes from linking up and causing vitamin A toxicity. So that's an important point, right? That you actually have a self-limiting step in your body that would prevent too much beta-carotene combining and becoming vitamin A. And they say, no, 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 I heard that if you get too much beta-carotene, you will turn orange. You will. You will turn orange, right? But that doesn't mean that you are in a toxic state. It means that the carotenoids, the natural color that is found in beta-carotene, or from beta-carotene or vitamin A rich foods, which are yellow and orange foods, that pigment is now depositing itself in you. And while I would say that's a pretty good sign that you're getting enough beta carotene and that you need to back that stuff off, right? That is not actually a sign of toxicity, because the enzyme in the body would not allow two beta carotenes to become vitamin A and cause a vitamin A toxicity. That can happen if you are consuming actual vitamin A, or you are a smoker. That is when we have an issue. There are studies that show that beta-carotene causes lung cancer in smokers. So I'm not sure why the vitamin got indicted in lung cancer in smokers, but because beta-carotene, actually I do know, beta-carotene can what's called pro-oxidize. When you take large amounts of it, and large amounts is 25,000 IUs, 50,000 IUs. It is not, in fact, 3,500 IUs or even 10,000 IUs. It's very high amounts taken over a chronic period of time. And in smokers, which is a high oxidative stress environment, beta-carotene can do what's called pro-oxidize. And that pro-oxidation can lead to harm. But here again, we're talking about physiologic levels of beta-carotene, not super physiologic levels of beta-carotene. We're talking about adding a good multivitamin with 3,500 or 5,000 or sometimes 10,000 IUs of beta-carotene, which is considerably less than what is considered too much. And remember, too much was in smokers. So if you do not smoke, you are in safer harbor. If you do not take supra physiologic amounts of beta-carotene, you are in safe harbor. If you get your beta carotene from sources where, like in a multivitamin that has other ingredients with it to help with its transport and its utilization, you're in safe harbor, which is bringing me to my next point. What about, I heard that fill in the blank ingredient causes heart disease, right? Well, you have to know the source, right? From a natural standpoint, you want to know the amount, because the amount matters. We just learned that with beta carotene. You want to know the environment. We just learned that with beta carotene and smoking. But you also want to know, like I was saying, in what combination was that nutrient taken? Science does a kind of ugly thing with supplementation. They try to pull individual ingredients out of nature. They try to isolate it, which is not how it's found in nature, right? They try to isolate things like calcium and then say it doesn't help improve bone mineral density. Calcium by itself doesn't improve bone mineral density, but individuals that eat dark green leafy vegetables, they tend to see improvement in bone mineral density. So just get a good diet. Listen, I'm on board with you getting a good diet. I'm on board with you loading up on your dark green leafies. Absolutely. But we shouldn't be indicting calcium supplements, because if you didn't make a calcium supplement that mimicked nature, meaning it had boron, it had phosphorus, it had calcium, it had B vitamins, right? The way dark green leafy vegetables are created, right? They're grown rich in these nutrients. So your calcium supplement should mimic the way calcium is found in nature. So when we look at the way nutrients are utilized in the literature, they're often removed from the way that they're found in nature. And then we indict them for not working like dark green leafy vegetables or a healthy diet. If your supplement can copy nature, if your supplement can copy the dark green leafy vegetables, you're going to get benefits like you did from the dark green leafy vegetables. Did anyone hear me say don't eat dark green leafy vegetables? No, you didn't. Eat a lot of those dark green leafy vegetables. I need you to eat 3 greens, 3 yellows, 3 oranges, 3 reds, 3 blues, and 3 purples every day. I need you to do that, okay? But if you are someone that is not getting that many colorful foods in your diet, is supplementation prudent? No, it's necessary. It's essential. You've got to get your nutrients from somewhere. At the very least, if your supplement, your calcium supplement, your multivitamin is helping you fill in gaps where your diet falls short, where you get back on the train of healthy eating, where you learn how to incorporate new foods into your diet, you're killing it. You're killing it, right? So we need to know that. We need to work with ourselves on those sorts of things. I do want to talk about the upper limits though. Again, some people say, no, I think you're just making an argument for beta carotene at, or the biotin or the calcium or that sort of thing. I mean, shouldn't I just be able to get all of this stuff from diet alone? You should, and that would be awesome if you could. But today's nutrients that are found in foods, our foods aren't grown to be nutritionally dense. They're not. They're grown to actually to be calorically dense, right? To be high in volume, and sometimes that means high in sugar or carbohydrates. But I want to get back to this like upper limit kind of thing. It's like I'm worried that I'm going to get too much of an ingredient. And so I just wrote down here from the beta carotene or vitamin A standpoint, sweet potatoes have 156% of daily value. Your sweet potato is above recommended daily value. My card just went away from me. What is above that? Beef, liver, organ meats are like 800 times recommended, or the percent daily values. So we need to know that both in food and in supplementation, we're exceeding that percent daily value. That percent daily value is the minimum amount you need to offset nutritional deficiencies. But you live in a toxic world. You bend and lift and twist every day, which means you're going to need higher than that 100%. We talked about the beta carotene enzyme. I really wanted to hit beta carotene a lot, I guess. That and calcium, because you'll hear that calcium causes heart disease, right? Well, calcium isolated from nature may have a problem functioning in the body the way nature intended, right? So when you use things like the boron, the phosphorus, the magnesium, the biotin, B vitamins like B3, it's going to be metabolized properly. Why? Because it has its cofactors. Your supplement copied nature. We talked about lung cancer in smokers. We talked about how do I know if my product is natural. I mentioned putting the L in front of things. When you see L instead of D in front of things, you know that you're looking at a natural product. We talked about isolated vitamins. What about on the label it says other ingredients? Well, other ingredients are often stabilizers for a product if it's in a liquid or a powder form. They do not contribute to the daily value or the percent daily value. They don't have a functional benefit to the body, but they have a functional benefit to the supplement. Like you may see something like silica, which is a flowing agent. You may see something like a maltodextrin. Maltodextrin often coats a product so that you don't have to use stearates or binders. So maltodextrin is frequently recommended to improve to coat ingredients so that they don't interact with each other. They don't clump in one part of the pill. There's a lot of different reasons, from flowing agents to filling agents, where you can use a food-based excipient. In the case of maltodextrin, it often comes from corn. Now, it can come from gluten, and so you should know the source, right? You should know if you're gluten sensitive. You should know if your maltodextrin is derived from gluten. Food allergies, or not food allergies, but common allergens will be listed on the label, which brings me to soy, right? People freak out when they see soy on a label, and that's cool. If your tolerance is zero tolerance, then it's zero tolerance, and you work to find something else. But it's important to know sourcing, and it's important to ask the question about amount, right? Soy lecithin is often found in cognitive products. Why? Because lecithin is actually a brain nutrient. Lecithin is a cardiovascular nutrient, right? So these, when it's in soy, when it's derived from soy, it's in a phospholipid form, which makes it highly bioavailable and beneficial for the brain, beneficial for the heart, beneficial for energy metabolism, right? But some people just have an absolute zero tolerance for any soy. That's okay. We just need to have a conversation when we make these decisions about our supplements. Is it fact or is it philosophy? Okay. Listen, if you ask me right now, should I eat grains? I would say, no, you shouldn't. Grains are like highly processed. They're like sugar bombs. Why would you eat grains, right? I mean, I'm talking about processed grains. I'm talking about cereals and pastas and things like that, right? If you're ripping grains out of the ground and chewing on their berries, more power to you, right? You're getting fiber, you're getting all kinds of things that you would need, right? But if you're eating bow tie pasta, my answer is no. But that's not fact. That's philosophy. That's philosophy. Right? I'm not keen on high glycemic index foods. And while we can show that high index glycemic index foods can wreak havoc in the body, right? My zero tolerance for grains, that's philosophy. That's not fact. So we have to also make sure that we're aware of somebody's philosophy versus fact. Soy does not cause cancer in the sense of soy acts in different tissues in different ways, but there are people that believe that soy protein, or not believe, that there are people that when they see soy protein, due to some personal health history, they will completely avoid, because that is their conservative answer. They have a zero tolerance, and we're cool with that. We just need to ask questions about amount that causes harm, right? Source, is that the issue? Do I have a unique concern, like my personal health history, that would not allow me to have soy? Is that true for everybody? If it's not true for everybody, then it's okay that those things are in supplements, right? Because they're good for some, but not good for everybody. I talk about that with food allergies all the time. There are plenty of foods that are good for you. They're just not good for you, right? So that's one of the things we want to talk about. I often get asked about What about I heard that when you see natural flavor, that it's really a synthetic flavor. That natural is just code for synthetic, which is kind of weird, because that's not what the word natural means. But what you should know is that the difference between the food industry and the supplement industry is a lot, right? So when you see in the products natural strawberry, that is because we have gone through great lengths to find a natural strawberry. It's not strawberry flavoring, right? It's not something that's a natural flavor that tastes like strawberry. It is actually strawberry. It is actually mango. It is actually the ingredient that we say it is. That when we say that it has a mango flavor, what is causing that flavor or creating that flavor is an actual mango, which brings me to natural colors. One of the best things about using natural ingredients and products is that they're naturally pigmented. We don't have to add colors to our products because proanthocyanidins are really, really blue, right? Riboflavin is really, really yellow. Cyano and methylcobalamin, and I know what I just said, are really, really purple, right? Which brings me to this next point. What about the B12? I'm freaking out because it's not methylcobalamin in all of the products. There's a couple of products where it is cyanocobalamin, and I heard that that is cyanide. No. Nope. In fact, cyanocobalamin in the products is fermented from bacteria. Bacteria create B vitamins and vitamin K. You should know that. They help vitamin D convert. Bacteria are little powerhouses, and they are vitamin producers. And so you can ferment bacteria to create B vitamins, but we are required to label them as cyano because it is not methyl. It is not a methylated form or the activated form. It is not a hydroxy form. It will convert into a hydroxy form. It will go through metabolism because it is naturally derived. But you should know that we are required to call it cyanocobalamin. You will sometimes see this with folic acid as well, that depending on the source of the folic acid or the folate, it can still be a naturally derived folate, but it is required to go on the label as folic, even though it was naturally derived from bacteria. Now, that is not going to be the case in these products because we use quadrafolate in most of the products. I think it's important that you know source and that you know amount, and that's why food colorings are not allowed, right? Synthetic colorings are not allowed. It's important, like I said, that we kind of get into that conversation about what's right for me, and then make that choice to personalize nutrition to ourselves. What is the source, and does that help people make a decision about what is right for them? If they're avoiding gluten, would they be okay with corn, right? It brings up a lot of questions for people. So I imagine during today's talk, you've had a couple of questions. Let's get into those. So there's currently no treatment for COVID-19, so I do not have any recommendations. Okay. No questions? Hi, Brandy. Thanks for being here. Okay, if there are, then we will go ahead and say goodbye. Yeah, I only got that one question. That's okay, because this will be available on the YouTubes, on the Googles, on the interwebs. You'll be able to find this, and perhaps you'll comment below and share some information.